What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NFL and NBA pre-lock show. I am Tasteful Tides, joined by my good friend from Florida, Bobby Gomes. How's it going, Bobby?
Going well. Happy to, get acclimated to Florida. Happy to be on with my guy Tim, and ready to talk some NFL and some NBA.
I do have just one question for you before we start talking about football. Is how many public subs did you have today?
No publics today for me. I have some leftovers for Dean.
Wow.
I'm going to get chicken wings yesterday. You were in the chat. I got them. So I got the family style. I'll eat a bunch of those later on.
All I've heard is how good public subs are in the private chat. So I was wondering if you would continue doing that or not.
Yeah, we're doing the public subs thing. We're doing Publix everything. Publix is fantastic. Wish we had Publix in Mass. The Mass is just losing to Florida completely. Like, I have to move down here. I've been saying it to you and Dean, but Florida's where it's at.
Yeah, I don't mind Florida in small doses, but I could never actually live there. But let's start talking some football. We got an amazing game for DFS purposes. We've got the Washington Commanders against the Detroit Lions. Huge total. I cannot wait to watch this game. I don't know about you, but I think this game should be pretty amazing. Who do you currently like at your captain spot? Let's start with captain first, and then we'll move into the flex.
Well, McLaurin's my favorite play in the slate, so I'm probably playing a bunch of McLaurin, I could imagine. I'm on Ross St. Brown. I think is fantastic. Jahmyr Gibbs as well. I think these guys are the guys that stand out currently for me from a captain perspective.
So you've got Gibbs and you've got McLaurin. Do you know how many teams are you making tonight, Bobby?
I think I'm playing 150 currently.
Oh, you're making 150?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm only playing my single entry stuff. I am currently kind of flip-flopping back and forth between guys like Amon-Ra. And obviously Jaden Daniels I love quite a bit. Definitely considering like some small piece, perhaps even like some Sam Laporta, because I think he's way too cheap, but I think he might be a better flex play. Who are the guys that you are generally liking in the flex, Bobby?
The quarterbacks, for one, are going to be significantly high owned for me in the flex. That being Jaden Daniels and Jared Goff. Well, I think you can get away with quarterback captain. It's not something I play a ton. I'll probably make an exception for Jaden Daniels on this slate just due to the rushing equity. Goff would be someone I'm not going to play in the captain position tonight. Just don't like the fact that he's not running. Obviously, there's weapons all around him, which he'd likely be leverage off of in the captain if he throws 3 or 4 touchdowns. Washington really hasn't surrendered a ton of deep stuff. So maybe he works it over and just maybe he is just not dinking and dunking, but basically it's just spread out and he doesn't really get there from a touchdown perspective. You get a touchdown from Montgomery, you get one from Gibbs, Amon-Ra gets in, and I don't know, maybe only throws 2 TDs, and then I'd rather have the skill players.
So you did mention that Terry McLaurin's your favorite captain play on the entire slate. What is that kind of what are you doing with Gibbs in your captain? I'm sorry if I missed that. I'm just curious because I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to know what you're doing with Gibbs because he's going to be a very, very popular captain, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm playing a good bit of Gibbs, but definitely favoring Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like the call you had on Laporta and his ceiling in the captain position. I think that's just a really strong play. Yeah, for Gibbs, I'm probably not playing him with Jared Goff, probably mixing in Detroit defense a little bit. I'm going to get overweight on the Gibbs captain ownership, though. I'm going to end up condensing my captain pools to mainly the Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Laporta, and McLaurin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always curious, like people that MME, like how many actual players do you play at the captain spot in your player pool? It's definitely.
I guess you can add Daniels to that mix. Yeah. So
yeah. Captains. And then I honestly think that I think Jameson Williams would be a really, really interesting captain as well, just because he's such a home run type play. He usually either does really, really bad or really, really good, which is fantastic for this type of format. So I wouldn't mind Jameson Williams in captain. Probably not in single entry, but I think if you're making MME, I think you could sprinkle in a little Jameson Williams. Are you in terms of value, Bobby? Who are you looking for in terms of some salary saving type options for the showdown slate?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be between Zacchaeus and Diami Brown. I don't think I'm separating them because it's basically showdown. I don't think there's really a need to, and just with how high this game total is, like it's really a good spot for both of those guys. I think you can look at the kickers as well. Jake Bates, don't mind him at 5K. My favorite like cheap option would I think I'm leaning Zacchaeus over Brown. Do you have a lean there?
Yeah, so I like Zacchaeus over Brown, but I mean it's super, super close.
It is close.
It's close in projection, and I think it's going to be close in ownership as well. My lean is Zacchaeus. I think last Washington game, Brown, that was a little bit fluky from Brown, but I just prefer Zacchaeus. I think it's just going to be on the field more. So that's where I would lean, but I don't have like a huge amount of conviction. I also played Zacchaeus on my main slate team, so I think I'm a little bit biased too, because I really need Zacchaeus to do well on the main slate. We would think on paper this would be a really, really bad spot for defenses. Now, I would assume ownership's going to reflect that as well. I don't think many people are going to go to these defenses just because the total is so high. Are you going to be? Do you think you're going to be over or under the field on either one of these defenses?
I think Washington, I would have slightly a little bit more currently. I think I'm around 16%, and then it's very slight. I have Detroit defense at 15% currently.
Okay. All right. I'm just checking to see if we have any questions that we can go over. If people have any questions on this showdown slate. Doesn't look like favorite captain on Yahoo. I have not looked into that, but I can right now.
Where's Kirk Dees when you need him?
I know, right? This is the Kirkwood question. I think if you're not worried about ownership so much, I think straight up it's probably Jahmyr Gibbs. Daniels is actually a little bit cheaper than Gibbs, but I still think I prefer Gibbs. But it's super close between those two. And then I think if you want to do a contrarian captain on Yahoo, or at least somebody that I'm thinking is going to be at least a little bit contrarian, I'd go either Terry McLaurin or Jameson Williams, because I think that they have the ceilings. Any tight ends in your pool, Bobby, other than Laporta?
Ertz is in my pool. I don't love it. It is showdown. But on the main slate, I don't love it, but it is showdown. And yeah, he's another one of the value receivers that I'm targeting, but he falls behind Zacchaeus and Brown for me.
Do you have any Raymond or Crowder in your pool?
Currently, let me see. The guy I have a good bit of is Tim Patrick, ahead of Raymond, around 12%. Tim Patrick currently.
Yeah, I would prefer. Yeah, I would prefer also Patrick over Raymond. Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers it. If you guys still have questions about the football, I will try to answer them in the YouTube chat, and also you can leave them in Discord as well. But I think it's time for us to transfer over to NBA, Bobby, if that's okay. We have a fun. Yeah, man. We've got a a 5-game slate on both DK and FanDuel. We've got a lot of news that just came in. Porzingis and Horford are ruled out. We were kind of expecting that, but we did have them in projections for most of the day. Tatum is in, and then we just got news that I think Yabusele and Paul George are both out, I believe. So that is really going to shake things up. But we did have an if-then for that. So that's looking like this is going to be a really, really good spot now for Tyrese Maxey. And Justin Edwards is probably going to end up being a really, really strong value as well. But let's go position by position. Let's start with FanDuel, Bobby. What do you like at point guard?
Can we start at DraftKings? Because that's what I currently have up.
Sure, let's start at DraftKings. What do you like at point guard, Bobby?
Well, I'm currently pulling it up. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I think I'll just start by saying, now that we have that 76ers news, like I was saying, this is going to end up being a really, really strong spot for Tyrese Maxey. This is a pretty decent matchup against Indiana. He's 9,500 on DK. He should be playing all the minutes that he can handle. So really, it's not really a question of if you should play him, but really how much you should play him.
Yeah.
His ownership is going to go up. We did have him at 21%. I imagine that increases, but it doesn't really bother me. I do think that now Curry is not as valuable as he was. Like Steph Curry was a really, really strong play at 88 against Washington, but now I'd find the 700 to go to Maxey. But I think, it's definitely a really, really good spot for both of those guys. So maybe we can play both, but I think the priority between those two is Tyrese Maxey. And then I think that somebody like Halliburton and Mitchell are okay for GPPs, but really the two primary plays at point guard are Maxey and then Curry.
Yeah. Did any Celtics come into play for you now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they definitely become pretty interesting. I like Tatum.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. The player that I'm having the biggest issue with, well, I guess there's two really. It's Luke Cornett at 3,400, who's center only. That always kind of just sketches me out a little bit. Like, is he going to play the amount of minutes that we think he's going to play? And then also Drew Holiday, just because he can be super inconsistent. But he does get point guard, shooting guard eligibility, and he's only 4,800. So I do like Drew. It's just I don't know what to do about Luke Cornett.
Yeah, Drew with point guard, shooting guard eligibility. I think that makes a good bit of sense. If we're talking from a chalk perspective, I don't know how many minutes we think he sees, around 30. I'm fine with Drew. Maxey, I think, is probably the strongest point guard player on the slate. Point guard play on the slate. Cornett, what do we have for Cornett's minutes? Like, Cornett has to be.
We gave him 24 minutes.
Yeah, I think Cornett's fine. I tagged him earlier today, so I don't have an issue with Cornett. Like, Porzingis is now out. I think for value, center usually has upside. I don't mind the Cornett play. Definitely don't hate it. In terms of other point guards, Steph Curry probably drops down a little bit for me. It's fine, though. I still think he's in play. I just think that he falls behind these other guys. Darius Garland at 7.4, Van Fleet at 7.2, Jordan Poole experience at 7.3. It's kind of, and Derek White at 6.6. Like, if you want to play Derek White instead of Drew in tournaments, I think that's perfectly fine.
And I do think, we see Drew Holiday getting 30 minutes out of the point guard, shooting guard spot. Same thing basically with Peyton Pritchard, who's 5K projected for 27 minutes. So I think Peyton Pritchard in GPPs is probably a pretty good pivot off of Drew Holiday. We'll see who actually comes in higher owned. I'm assuming it'll be Holiday, but I think Pritchard makes for a really, really strong GPP play. And then, Mike Connolly finally, had a decent game. He got 24 minutes, and he was in the optimal, I think, last night. But he's 3,400, getting 25 minutes. I think now that we have this Holiday value in Pritchard, I'm not gonna play Mike Connolly. I very, very rarely play Mike Connolly. What about you? Do you have any interest in Mike Connolly?
I faded him last night, and I will fade him again tonight. There's no way I'm playing him.
Yeah, I played Neil Alexander Walker, and he was absolutely horrible.
I had not too.
Yeah, I had not, and he was just absolutely terrible. So I hope that we don't have to go back to that. But yeah, definitely some more value tonight. Moving over to shooting guard, Bobby. It's looking like we're going to get a lot of ownership on Jaylen Brown, and probably a lot on Drew Holiday. I think Jalen Green is interesting in GBPs. Same thing with Shaden Sharp. We've got Not 3,200. And then Anthony Edwards, who just seems to be absolutely matchup proof now at 9,300. Absolutely smashed last night with 65. I believe it was 65 DraftKings points. Who's your favorite shooting guards on this slate?
I think it's Jaylen Brown currently. He would probably be my favorite, followed by Drew, followed by Edwards. Koulibaly's in the mix, I guess. Shooting guard, small forward eligibility. Who else? Hit on Derek White. What about Amen Thompson? He's questionable. He's got the Q tag. I think I'd rather get to Jalen Green for basically 700 less. I think that's where I'm at shooting guard.
Yeah, that Thompson news is actually really, really kind of hard to figure out, because that's a standalone 10 o'clock Eastern game. So swapping is going to be a little bit tricky, because we also have DeAndre Ayton in that game as well, who's questionable. And so it's kind of a tough game to evaluate late news for. We do have Andre Drummond starting for Philly tonight, which I was not.
He's a fake starter, correct?
I don't know. We'll have to see what the projections give him, but it's definitely pretty interesting. He's 5K. I don't know if he's really that fake of a starter. I mean, he's never gonna play like huge minutes, right? Like, but I mean, if he could easily play like 25,
Yeah.
So I don't know. He's just been a really frustrating player to roster this year. Pretty difficult, but I think it's not a horrible matchup either. So definitely going to be interesting. I think Justin Edwards is going to be a really solid play at 3,300. We have him coming off the bench. I think Ricky Council is decent at 3K. But yeah, it's definitely going to be Tyrese Maxey is going to be the priority play for me.
Yeah, Maxey would be the priority play for me too. I wouldn't be playing Amen Thompson just because by that time I'll be asleep. So it makes it easier just to X the Rockets or X a questionable in the Rocket on a 10 p.m. Eastern game. Rather would play Jalen Green. I like the Edwards call. Yeah, that's pretty much. We're talking shooting guard, correct? Still.
Yeah, I mean, we're bouncing back and forth. We're evaluating the news. We can kind of do whatever we want, Bobby. We did have a comment in chat like Yabu's out. Doesn't Drummond have to play? Yeah, kind of. He does have to play, but I mean, we do have Bona. We do have Pete Nance. Like, I don't think Drummond's going to get super extended here. That doesn't mean that he can't pay off that 5K price tag. But I don't think he's going to see like huge minutes. So
I think I would rather Cornette at 3-4 rather than the spend up to Drummond.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what the projections say. Probably Cornette is probably a better points per dollar play. Cornette Cornette is confirmed to start. We just got that starting lineup in, so that is what we were expecting. I think let's move it over to shooting guard, small forward. Excuse me, small forward. Bobby, what do you got over there?
Yeah, Jaylen Brown. I think he kicks it off, and he's going to be the chalkiest play at this position. I think he's perfectly fine. Jason Tatum. He seems like he's your favorite play. I think I'm right in line with you. I do like the Anthony Edwards call with small forward eligibility at 9.2. I may. I like. Is Edwards going to get squeezed a little bit here? Do you think that's possible?
Do I think Justin Edwards? Oh, Anthony Edwards is going to get
sorry.
squeezed. No, it's fine. Anthony Edwards. I do. I don't think he's going to be that highly owned.
I might prefer Anthony Edwards to Tatum in this matchup.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a hot take. To be honest with you.
Yeah. I just like Jaylen Brown. Traditionally, he's killed the Hawks previously. I think he's from the Atlanta area. I know the game's in Boston, but
I mean, Edwards is only shooting guard though.
Oh, I'm on. What am I on? Why am I? Oh, I'm on FanDuel. Why was I on? I switched back over to FanDuel. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I would prefer Tatum. Why did I? Yeah. Shoot. Got my tabs mixed up.
Would you prefer points per dollar Tatum over Jaylen Brown, or play Brown over Tatum at 7.9?
I think Tatum's the play there now for me. Yeah.
Yep. We do have some pretty solid value plays at small forward. Ricky Council, the Stone Min, small forward, power forward. Justin Edwards should be the sixth man off the bench for Philly tonight at 3.3. Neil Alexander Walker, we already talked about. McDaniels at 4.2. So this is an okay position to spend down on. But then we also have the Jaylen Browns, the Jason Tatums for spend ups. We did get a question about Andrew Wiggins, who was a really, really standout play, I think, before all this value. I have no issue if you want to play Andrew Wiggins. I do think that there are better plays at this position. I think you should either be spending up for Tatum or Brown, or going down to some of this super, super cheap Philly stuff. I do think that Wiggins ends up getting squeezed a little bit here, but I'm fine staying away from Andrew Wiggins. What about you, Bobby?
Yeah, I think Wiggins is probably a play to be off of at this position.
Yeah. Let's move it over to power forward if we could. We have Tatum, who's going to be, I think, probably a very, very popular option. We have Naz Reid, I think, is a very, very interesting play. We have, again, Ricky Council as value. I think Sam Hauser might be interesting. He might be just for really, really large field stuff. But I think this position is not as strong as small forward, but it's pretty close. And then we also have Pascal Siakam at 7,500, guys like that. Who do you have interested in power forward, Bobby?
Tag Naz Reid earlier today. DiVincenzo's out. It gives a bump to Jaden McDaniels, but I also think it gives a bump to Naz Reid. I think Reid is fine at 4.8. Tatum as small forward, power forward. You can use him at either. Julius Randle, I'm not playing. He's been terrible. Pretty sure he just doesn't even want to play. Or just doesn't like that team, or he doesn't fit in currently. Wiggins is the cash play, I feel like. Are you on board with that?
I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing with Wiggins, just because now we've got a little bit more value. Earlier in the day, I definitely considered Wiggins a cash game type play. Now with the whole Ricky Council thing, the Justin Edwards thing, I'm not so sure that he necessarily has to be a cash game play.
Yeah.
But I think that if you need that mid-range guy in your build, I'm fine with him in cash, but I don't think he necessarily is the optimal play.
Yeah. Yeah, Ricky, what do we have for Ricky Council's minutes currently?
I think they're pretty high. We have him for 29. So yeah, I was gonna guess around like low 30s. So 29 by the projections team. I mean, he's really standing out as a really, really strong value. Ricky Council's currently in our first optimal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of booted out guys like Wiggins, like like Wiggins, like Draymond. I think Nas was popping a little bit earlier as well. We did have a question in chat. What do we think about Draymond Green in this game?
I think I prefer him to Wiggins now.
I kind of do too in tournaments.
Yeah.
I kind of prefer Green and GPPs.
He does a bunch from like peripherals, 5.7's on a bad price tag. I'm fine with Draymond. I do like Council more than if I had to pick my favorite 76ers value. I would prefer Council to Drummond at 3K.
Yeah, that for me the question is, what do I do with Justin Edwards and Ricky Council? Because I would imagine Edwards is projected for 27 minutes versus Council's 29. Edwards is going to be coming off the bench and may end up with more ball handling / usage than Council. So I think that Edwards is a super, super interesting GPP play. And I think that you can play him in cash games as well. So I think that's something to just remember, that just because Edwards isn't starting doesn't mean he's not a really, really strong play. I just wanted to throw that in there for everyone. Let's move over to center, Bobby. Who do you like over there?
Ricky Council's really popping in our stuff now.
Yeah.
Luke Cornett. I like Luke Cornett 3-4. I know Drummond's people are gonna try to make Drummond work, but I would just rather play the guy on the better team, higher implied team total. Just like Cornett, like Nas Reed, like we already said. DiVincenzo out. Should bump McDaniels, Nas Reed, so I'm fine with those guys. Rudy Gobert, why not? Come on down. 5'2", center position. I would rather get to a Cornett. I would prefer Nas Reed to Rudy Gobert, but I think Rudy Gobert is also in play. Miles Turner at 6K. I think he's fine for GPPs. Like, are we worried about Drummond defense? You know what I mean? Like, I think Miles Turner is interesting.
So there is an important piece of news that we didn't talk about. Isaac Okoro and Evan Mobley are both questionable for Cleveland. If they were both to miss, Jared Allen would become a really, really strong play at 6'6". He's already a decent play as it sits right now, but he would become a very, very strong play against this big Minnesota team. So I think he's an important piece to remember. Allen is currently popping in our first optimal. He's kind of been popping in optimals all day. So that is something to just consider. That's a 9:00 game. We did have a question from Derek in chat. DK GPP, Simons or Sharp? Bobby, what do you think about that?
Simons or Sharp? I'd probably lean Simons. Are you on Sharp?
So I think I'd probably save the money and go Sharp.
Yeah,
but it's pretty close. I think that I think I'd go Sharp there, but it's pretty close. Richard asked, now that Cornett is starting, is he worth a spot on DK single entry build? I think so, Richard. He's a little bit risky, but center isn't like amazing tonight, so there's not like a massive opportunity cost at center, so I think it's fine. Ready for FanDuel, Bobby?
Yep, let me pull it up in my tab switched earlier.
So on FanDuel, Maxey's 9,400, pretty expensive, but I think he's worth the price tag now that we've got that news. He's popping in all the optimals, even at that price tag. So Tyrese Maxey, he's the top overall point guard play on the slate. I think that you can go down to guys like Derek White at 6'6". I think that Dennis Schroeder at 51. He's fine for GPPs. Drew Holiday at 54. I think he's fine for cash or GPPs. Steph Curry was going to be the super chalk. Now his ownership should come down a little bit because we have Tyrese Maxey at $500 more. So I think that, those, Maxey, Holiday, Curry, those can all be like optimal plays. Schroeder a GPP play, Derek White GPP, Peyton Pritchard, who's 5,500, only $100 more than Drew Holiday. I think he's a strong, GPP pivot off of Holiday if you want to go that way. And then, we have some pretty strong options here. Bobby, who are your favorite point guards on FanDuel?
Yeah, it would be Maxey at 9.4, Drew Holiday at 5.4. Steph Curry's going to get squeezed now. And I know the 3-point bonus isn't on FanDuel and it's more beneficial to play him on DraftKings. I feel like we should have talked about him more on DK a little bit versus Washington as a tournament option. I wouldn't love him on FanDuel, but I think he's in play. Who else currently? Darius Garland at 7.4, I think, is interesting. Becomes more interesting if Mobley's removed or sits. Derek White at 6.6 and Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah. Let's move it over to shooting guard real quick. It's looking like Ricky Council is going to be very, very popular value over there. He's only 3,800. He's shooting guard only. Definitely going to be your cash game guy. But I think that there's some interesting tournament plays over here. We've got guys like, we talked about Drew Holiday. Jaylen Brown, I think, is really, really interesting. Jalen Green at 7,600. Shaedon Sharpe at 6,300. I think those are all really, really strong plays at shooting guard. Bobby, who are your favorite shooting guard plays?
Yeah, Ricky Council, I think, is pretty much close to a lock at 3.8. Jaylen Brown at 8.1. I think he's fine. Drew would be the one I'd probably get away from. Like Ant Edwards talked about him when at 9.2, spending up there, shooting guard, small forward eligible. Jalen Green, if you're waiting for that Amen Thompson news, unlike me, I'll be asleep, like I said, but I think he's perfectly fine. Derek White, Shaedon Sharpe, I think these guys are all very much in play.
So now we're moving over to small forward. Earlier in the day, it was looking like Wiggins was going to be very popular. I still think he's going to get some ownership, probably a little bit less now. He's 6,400. We talked about Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. We love this Amen Thompson news is super, super kind of tough to deal with on this particular slate because that's the last game. But he would be really a strong play, I think. Anthony Edwards at 9,200. He seems super expensive. It does not seem like a great matchup, but he has just been on top of his game lately. So I think that he is fine for tournaments. But I think that it's likely Jaylen Brown probably is the first priority for cash. And then, I don't know, it kind of depends on the rest of your team. But I would maybe look to Wiggins or McDaniels. But if you have salary and you want to get more Boston exposure, then it's Tatum. How about large field stuff, Bobby? Who do you like?
I like fading Wiggins at 6.4 and playing McDaniels. I would rank him ahead. If if I had a rank, you said Jaylen Brown's the cash play. I would just flip it and play Tatum overweight. And Anthony Edwards is the one I think gets squeezed. I might even consider playing him over Tatum and just playing the Brown chalk. I'm probably playing one of Brown or Tatum. Shaden Sharp at 6'3", I think is cool. That's pretty much it, though. That's pretty much where I'm going.
All right. Let's go over to power forward real quick. Some guys that we haven't talked about. FanDuel, Justin Edwards, power forward only, 4,100. I think he's a really strong play in any format. Draymond Green, 61. Jarrett Allen on FanDuel has power forward eligibility, which makes him a little bit more intriguing. So I think he's fine at 7,400. Allen is currently popping in our first optimal. Andrew Wiggins, we've already talked about. Trace Jackson Davis, 6,400. I think he's a reasonable pivot off of Andrew Wiggins, who's going to be higher owned, but probably not for cash games. Who do you like at power forward, Bobby?
Justin Edwards at 4-1, even if he's coming off the bench, which I think he is currently now. Like you said, I think his ownership will be depressed for that reason. And at 4-1, I think you just kind of try to find a way to get to him. Jaden McDaniels at 5K with DiVincenzo out. He should see a bump in usage. Jared Allen has power forward eligibility. We talked about if Evan Mobley sits, Allen would assume more usage, and really good spot for him where they'll need him versus Minnesota and they're big. So like him a good bit. And then Tatum. I think I'd prefer to play Tatum at the power forward position on FanDuel for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Center, Bobby, we've got Luke Cornett at 4,100. I guess he's okay for cash. I kind of like Rudy Gobert at 61. Also, DeAndre Ayton, he's questionable. I don't think I can play him in cash games, but 5,900 seems a little bit cheap for him. We talked about Jared Allen. If Thompson sits, Şengün at 9,100 would be super interesting. But again, we really don't know what to do with that situation. So that's a kind of a tough situation to play. But I think Şengün is super interesting for GPPs.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like if you want to wait up till 10, like all the power to you, you can play Şengün. Cash games, I think it's Cornett at 4-1. I think an interesting pivot for me would be if Mobley sat to get to Allen. Miles Turner at 6'9", I think is interesting. Now you're like from a tournament perspective, playing Naz Reid at the center position as well, I think is a way to go about it. I like your Gobert call too, because it seems like people are going to play McDaniels. People are going to play Conley. They're going to play Randall. You know what I mean?
Right.
Really wants to play Gobert. And I think he has a better ceiling than what we're currently giving him credit for. So in GVPs, I think he's a fine play.
Yeah, I really do like Gobert quite a bit. Let's take some QQs really quick if we could. Let me just see if let me see. Doesn't seem thoughts on Okongwu with Porzingis out.
I think at 5'8", he's fine, and he works as a run back. I think that if you're going to play him, I would probably play him at the center position and then run back Tatum or Brown.
Favorite center on FanDuel for GPPs, Bobby?
Center on FanDuel for GPPs?
Yep.
I think it's Gobert.
Yeah, I don't mind that call at all. I think Gobert is super interesting. I like Allen too, and you can run those guys back together because Allen has power forward eligibility on FanDuel. So I think that's a pretty good little mini game stack. So they both should play really, really high minutes as well. So I'm definitely okay with that. Do you have any interest in Miles Turner on FanDuel, Bobby?
I think Turner's another perfect GPP play, if that's the context that you're asking the question.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's a GPP play. I mean, he should be playing. I mean, he's projected for 30 minutes. He's going to get some Drummond, who he should be able to control pretty easily. I got to check how many minutes we ended up giving Drummond. I am curious.
He might eat Drummond alive.
He very well might. We gave Drummond 22 minutes, which is kind of in line with what I was thinking. He could definitely get there in 22 minutes, but he has just been so bad. Get in your last minute questions if you can, either NBA or NFL. I am going to do a quick ad read before we get out of here. Playing multiple DFS sports, check out this sweet deal. For a limited time, get your first month of Combo Pro for $79.99. That's just $15 more than a PGA Premium and $5 more than NBA Premium. Talk about a value play. FanDuel single entry. Like Halliburton as a run back with the Philly plays. I don't mind that take. I think that's a reasonable play. Halliburton has flashed a monster ceiling at times, has been inconsistent this year, but I don't mind the theory behind that play at all. Read on FanDuel for power forward, Bobby. How do you like Reed?
I like Reed for both center and power forward on FanDuel, but I think you're probably better off playing him at power forward, I guess.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. We are going to get out of here a couple of minutes early. Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate it. Thank you, Steve. And thank you, everybody. And you have been crunched.